All right, so if you're like me and you can't resist a good true crime story or just, fascinated by these stories about power and betrayal, well, you're going to love this one.
Oh, yeah.
We're going deep, deep into 1970s Harlem.
Okay.
The world of Leroy, Nicky Barnes, you might know him as Mr. Untouchable,
Wow.
built a heroin empire
Yeah.
so powerful it seemed like, well, nothing could touch him.
Right.
But today we're really focusing on the man who, maybe unknowingly, held the key to Barnes's downfall, Wallace Rice.
Interesting. What's so intriguing about Barnes's organization, though, is that it wasn't just like a random group of criminals, right?
Right.
They called themselves the Council.
Okay.
With only 7 members.
Wow.
Operate with a level of structure and discipline. I mean, it rivaled a legitimate business.
Like a board of directors, almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, exclusive club, right?
Yeah.
Nicky Barnes at the helm, of course. And then you had Joseph Jazz, Hayden, Wallace Rice, the man of the hour.
Right.
Thomas Gapps Foreman, Ishmael Mohammed, Frank James, and Guy Fisher. So these weren't just like any names.
Yeah.
These were the architects of a sophisticated operation that controlled a lot of the heroin trade in Harlem.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, in a world like that, trust is everything. It's the most valuable currency.
Oh, for sure.
You got to know who's got your back, who won't, flip on you when the stakes are high. But we're going to see that trust, it can be a double-edged sword.
Right.
Especially when you throw in power, money, personal vendettas.
Yeah, all that.
It gets messy.
It always does. So let's kind of like set the stage here, right?
Okay.
For the unraveling of Nicky Barnes's empire, picture Wallace Rice driving through the city, probably feeling pretty good on top of the world.
Yeah.
And suddenly he gets pulled over.
Okay.
2 officers, Dunphy and Orenberger.
Right.
New York City Police Department. Citywide anti-crime squad.
Wow. Sounds serious.
Right.
Yeah. Sounds like a routine traffic stop, right?
You would think.
You would think. Until they search his car and find over 2 kilos of heroin.
Whoa. That's a major bust.
Yeah, this is not small potatoes. This is a major bust that hints at, something much bigger going on.
Right. This arrest, I mean, this was a turning point.
Okay.
So Rice gets prosecuted by Assistant District Attorney Keith Krasno, and ultimately he's sentenced to life in prison, January 12, 1984.
Wow.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The tip that led to Rice's arrest, well, it's believed to have come from Nicky Barnes himself.
Wait, hold on. Nicky Barnes, the leader of the council, the guy who built this whole thing, he ratted out one of his own? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive.
What could possibly make him do that?
Well, it seems that Barnes, while he was behind bars himself, he started to suspect that his trusted associates weren't so loyal. He found out they were mismanaging his assets.
Really?
They stopped paying his legal fees.
Come on, that's cold.
And to add insult to injury, Guy Fisher, one of his closest guys, was having an affair with Barnes's girlfriend.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wasn't there like a strict rule against that?
Absolutely.
A code of honor within the council?
No sleeping with another member's wife.
Oh.
Cardinal rule, apparently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in their twisted world.
Yeah.
And, Fisher breaking this code, well, it just added fuel to the fire. Barnes was already angry and resentful, and this just pushed him over the edge.
So Barnes, feeling totally betrayed, enraged, he decides to play the ultimate revenge card.
Yep.
He becomes an informant.
Wow.
Not only giving up the names of those who wronged him,
right,
but potentially like dozens of others involved in his operation. He wasn't just cutting ties, he was burning the whole house down.
You got it. This wasn't just a few low-level players.
Right.
We're talking Barnes handed over 109 names to the authorities.
109.
109, including 5 members of his own council.
Oh, wow.
And even his own wife. Talk about a scorched earth policy. I mean, it really shows you how deep his anger was and the reach of his organization.
109 names. That's mind-boggling. What does that tell us about the true scale of Barnes's operation? The power that the council had? I mean, was he more than just a Harlem drug lord?
Yeah, it gives you a glimpse into how deeply embedded they were in the community. I mean, we're talking a vast network, from street-level dealers all the way up to high-level suppliers and distributors, all connected to Barnes. And his knowledge, his willingness to expose this whole network, it speaks volumes about the control he had.
It's like almost hard to grasp the scale of it. But before we get ahead of ourselves, like, let's focus on that pivotal moment. Barnes's decision to turn informant. I mean, what led him to that point? Was it purely revenge, or was there something more at play?
To understand that, I think we need to delve into Barnes's psyche a little bit, explore his motivations, and examine the circumstances that pushed him to betray the people he once considered his family. And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, so we're back and we're, still trying to figure out Nicky Barnes. We're trying to figure out the council. But really, it comes down to this question. What drove Mr. Untouchable to become, well, Mr. Informant? I mean, he had it all, right? An empire, a code, a brotherhood,
Hmm.
and he blew it all up.
I mean, yeah, put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're Nicky Barnes, right?
Yeah.
Facing life in prison, abandoned by the guys you trusted, and you realize that your world, this world you built, is crumbling around you. I mean, you're going to start making some pretty extreme decisions.
Yeah, no, totally. And we talked about the betrayal. I mean, his assets mismanaged, legal fees unpaid, and then just the ultimate, slap in the face, Guy Fisher and the girlfriend. But was it all just revenge? Just an eye for an eye?
I mean, revenge was definitely a factor, right? But Barnes, he was a pragmatist too, always playing a high-stakes game, and he knew the rules. So by cooperating, he was, I don't know, kind of making a deal with the devil, hoping to salvage something from the wreckage.
A deal with the devil, huh? But what was he hoping to gain? I mean, what could the authorities even offer a guy like Barnes? He built an empire on breaking the law.
Right, well, this is where the whole concept of witness protection comes in. Basically, the government gives you a new identity, relocates you, protects you when you testify against dangerous criminals. Risky move, sure, but for someone like Barnes, facing life behind bars, it might have seemed like the only way out.
So he trades his empire for a shot at a new life, albeit a life, living in the shadows. That's a wild twist. But what about the immediate aftermath? What happened in Harlem when the news broke that Mr. Untouchable was actually, well, an informant?
Chaos. I mean, the council, the undisputed rulers of the Harlem underworld, they fractured. Arrests, trials, the streets that Barnes used to control, they became a battleground for all these rival gangs trying to grab power. It was like a shockwave just ripped through the community.
What about those 109 names that Barnes gave up? I mean, was everyone he named convicted?
Well, his testimony led to charges against 44 other traffickers. 16 ended up being convicted. So yeah, it was a huge blow to organized heroin trafficking in Harlem, but it also raised a lot of questions about the war on drugs.
Oh, yeah, the war on drugs. Definitely got to talk about that. I mean, Barnes's case happened during a really turbulent time in America, right? So how did his actions, the betrayal, the whole takedown of his organization, how did that fit into the larger story of the war on drugs?
Well, it's complicated. Some people saw Barnes cooperating as a win, right? Like, finally, law enforcement was making progress against organized crime. But then other people criticized the deal, saying it legitimized a dangerous criminal set a bad precedent.
Sounds like a real moral dilemma. I mean, you've got this ruthless criminal who, made money off the suffering of others, but then his cooperation took down this massive drug network. It's tough.
Exactly. And you see that in how the public reacted to Barnes. Some saw him as a straight-up villain, getting what he deserved. Others, maybe the people who saw the effects of heroin firsthand, they felt a sense of relief, like, finally, this reign of terror is over.
It's like history's never black and white, is it? It's shades of gray, competing stories, unintended consequences that just ripple out and shape things in ways you can't predict.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. Barnes' story is the perfect example of that. He was a product of his time, but he shaped it too. A man whose actions had consequences that we're still debating today.
So we've talked about why Barnes flipped, the immediate fallout, how it all ties into the war on drugs. But what about the long-term impact? What's the legacy of Nicky Barnes, Mr. Untouchable turned Mr. Informant?
That's what we're going to get into in the last part of our deep dive. We'll look at the ripple effects of his actions, why his story still fascinates and, provokes us. And maybe we'll even figure out what lessons, if any, we can learn from this whole cautionary tale of ambition, betrayal, and I guess the elusive nature of redemption.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Nicky Barnes and the council. It's a wild story, right? We've talked about his rise, the structure of it all, and the betrayal that brought it all down. But now I think in this last part, we got to look at the lasting impact, right? What does it all mean? What does Barnes's story tell us about, human nature?
Yeah, it's easy to focus on the immediate aftermath, like you said, the arrests, the trials, the power shifts. But I think, the real story unfolds later in the years that follow, the little changes, the unintended consequences that ripple out.
So, what were those ripples in Harlem? I mean, did taking down Burns's network actually make a difference in the fight against drugs?
Well, it's tough to say for sure. I mean, yeah, there was disruption, supply chains broken, key players off the streets, law enforcement got a lot of intel.
But didn't that film, Mr. Untouchable, I think it came out in 2007, didn't it suggest that maybe taking Barnes down wasn't, the victory everyone thought it was?
Yeah, it kind of sparked this debate, right?
Yeah.
Did Barnes being gone actually help Harlem? Or did it just create this void, that was quickly filled by new players, maybe even worse than the ones before? It's a question that comes up a lot when you're fighting organized crime.
Yeah.
Are you really fixing the problem or just changing the faces?
Yeah, that's a tough one to think about. It makes me think about the war on drugs, which was, going on during all of this. Did Barnes's case actually have any impact on that bigger picture?
Barnes's story, in a way, became like this microcosm of the war on drugs.
Mm.
It highlighted the contradictions,
Hmm.
the complexities. You had this focus on arrests, on incarceration. But was that really addressing the root causes of drug use, of trafficking? Was it creating a system where informants, even guys as deep in it as Barnes, were seen as, I don't know, like necessary evils?
And you got to remember, Barnes wasn't just any informant. He was a master manipulator, playing the game from behind bars. Makes you wonder about the ethics of making deals with a guy like that, even if it means you get some short-term wins.
For sure. And it's a debate we're still having today, right? How far should law enforcement go? When does the pursuit of justice, become compromised by the methods? No easy answers there, but Barnes's story, it forces us to ask those questions.
It's a story that really sticks with you. This guy who seemed untouchable, larger than life, brought down by the very things that made him powerful. Greed, betrayal, that hunger for power that just ate him up in the end.
Yeah, and it shows that even in that world, in the criminal world, where loyalty and ruthlessness go hand in hand, human emotions, jealousy, rage, revenge, they can be just as powerful as any weapon.
So as we wrap up our look at Nicky Barnes and the council, I think we're left with a question for you, for everyone listening. What does this story tell us about power, loyalty, the choices we make when we're backed into a corner? It's a story that's hard to pin down, full of ambition and betrayal, and it still fascinates us all these years later. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on our next deep dive.